This is All India Radio Hyderabad. In our weekly English program, today we bring you an interview with Aparna Malladi, filmmaker. Talking to her is Sumanaspati Reddy. Welcome to All India Radio, Aparna. You and your sister Amulya, although they are not much known here or hardly known here in Hyderabad and in Andhra Pradesh, you both have been creating waves in different fields in Europe, in the US, and in the English-speaking world largely. Your film Mitsane, completed last year, has been doing the rounds of major film festivals and has won quite a few accolades. And your sister Amulya has already published 5 novels, most of them with their plot or story based in India. Her publishers are major international publishers. To what you attribute this kind of a gap between the kind of work you people have been doing and a certain lack of knowledge about it here? We should have known much more about both of you, isn't it?
I think it's because, first thing, it's in English. I make films in English. My sister writes in English. And even though her books are available here, people probably don't know much about her, maybe because she stayed most of the time in Europe and US. She's done a lot of publicity there. And same with me. Most of the film festivals on the film festival circuit have been Europe or US. Once, I think my short film was shown in Kerala, but I never came. Nupur. And then the feature film was actually shown in 2009, I think, at the Mumbai International Film Festival. So then I got a little bit of press.
Okay, that has been the solo screening of the film in India?
Yes.
So far?
So far.
Although now you are a US citizen, the early part of your life was spent in India. You grew up in India in different places and you have a solid connection with Hyderabad also. From here and getting translocated in the US and still managing a kind of a relationship with India, how did this work out for you? And
we both went to school here. So my dad was in the army, so we traveled a lot all over India. But I did my engineering at the Osmania University. I did my chemical engineering. My sister went to CBIT. She did electronics engineering. I graduated in 1991. And my sister graduated 4 years later. And we both studied our masters in the US, And then our journey has been mostly engineering, but somewhere once we got to the US, I think we were able to look for our artistic expression. Maybe something that was not allowed here while we were here. But in the US, we could do that.
Are you implying that you didn't have any inkling of the artistic side of your personality before you went to the US?
Yeah, actually, I didn't do any art while I was here in India. I don't think art is really supported, I remember when I was in school, there was a girl who used to do very good drawing, but she wasn't good at math, and so she was considered a bad student, and she would sit in the back row. But she made beautiful art, and there was no place for her in the education system. For whatever reason, my sister and I, we did fairly well in science and math, so we were still considered good students. I don't know what would have been if we were just purely into art, and then probably then you wouldn't even have chance to even develop that art. You would just get married off,
Yeah. How did your journey into the films begin after you landed in the US?
So after I landed in the US, I did my master's and then I went to Silicon Valley. I did my master's in molecular biology. So there's a biotech industry that, was coming up and in the crevices of the, Silicon Valley computer industry. And so I went and joined a biotech company there. And at some point I realized that, I was quite settled. I was making decent money and all I could see was scaling up of my life. Bigger, cars, bigger house, bigger vacations. And it just seemed futile. And then I started questioning that maybe that was not my purpose. So, started looking for some kind of artistic expression, I guess. And it led me to a place called Film Arts Foundation, which is in San Francisco. And it's a big hub for indie filmmaking and documentary filmmaking. Some big, almost Academy Award winning kind of documentaries have come out of Film Arts Foundation. And so I became associated with that community. I learned my filmmaking on 16 millimeter Bolex cameras. And then finally, I got a small grant from them based on a short script that I wrote. And I made my first film, Nupur. And then that started my journey.
Tell us briefly, what kind of film is Nupur? How did you conceive the idea, and what does it really portray?
Both my films, Nupur and Midsayan, have very personal stories. For Nupur, I just needed some kind of a vehicle, a personal vehicle that I could use to just learn the craft of filmmaking, because it's my first film, right? I was more concerned about like the camera and editing and all the techniques and craft of filmmaking, but I needed enough of a personal story in order to hang all this on. So, and plus the grant required that you wrote a script and send it to them before they gave you the grant. That's how Nupur was conceived. Nupur is based on the fact that somewhere along the way, an artist would take the road less traveled or get off the beaten path. And that decision can happen any time in life. It could happen even when you're 4 years old. And that can impact your life for the rest of your life, right? So Nupur is based on the story of a girl who makes that decision. And she's reminiscing about that moment. So it's in the form of a voiceover. So we come to revisit that moment. And that's the 10-minute short film.
Right. It's acceptable that your very first film is based on your personal emotions and your personal agenda, how you look at yourself. It happens with many first-time filmmakers. But why is it that your second film is also so strongly pegged on a certain kind of personal mission?
I think all my films, whether they were in the past or in the future, are going to be very personal, because I think that's the reason I became a filmmaker, is because I had a personal story to tell. Whatever I'm experiencing in that time of my life, it becomes a story and becomes a film. In fact, I feel like I don't even have to make an effort to make the film. It's almost like I am filled with a personal experience, and that manifests itself in the form of a film automatically.
Midsayan has received extremely good reviews at various film festivals. It has been highly appreciated. In comparison to Nupur, it's a much more complex film in terms of the way the script is handled, the symbolism, the various kinds of symbolism that you have inscribed into the film. Its total movement has a fine lyrical quality to it. What were you basically trying to say through the film?
With Midsayan, at that stage in my life, I think we all come to a place in life, at least as a woman. First thing I have to tell you, I made this film for women because it's a woman's journey. You know, the title Midsayan means to be with. It is coined by a German philosopher named Martin Heidegger, and then it was used by Simone de Beauvoir in her book The Second Sex, where she says that man and woman are in a primordial Midsayan. I loved the word, and from that I created the story that if man and woman are in fact in a primordial Midsayan, or that we are always in the state of being with someone, what is the prerequisite condition to be in that state? Is to first find yourself and be with yourself. And what is that journey that you need to take? What if someone was forced to be with someone else without ever having been with themselves? What would happen? So Midsayan is a story about a woman who is pushed into being with someone before she has discovered who she is and before she has learned to be with herself. And obviously, you cannot have a successful relationship till you have done that journey, And so it's her journey to find that. And I used a very surreal, kind of metaphorical or lyrical vehicle to kind of portray that, because it's such an internal journey. How do you externalize it? So I had to, use all these metaphors and a lot of poetry. I'm a big fan of Fellini, so I wanted to be like Fellini. So I used a lot of surrealism and into the film.
Like those scenes with the puppeteers or some Roma kind of dancers going through the scene, and a very slow, intense kind of a dance movement in the last part of the film.
Yeah.
You mean such scenes?
I'm also a painter, so that's how I make my art. Whatever is coming into my life at that moment, I just incorporate it into the film. Those dancers were not written in the script. The dervishes or these very surreal kind of puppeteers and stuff. What happened is, while shooting the film, this group of puppeteers, they just showed up on the set, and so I just incorporated them. They just started walking across my frame. And later on, I realized in the editing room that it just works. People, of course, will credit me for that, saying, "Oh my God, that's so beautiful." But really, it had nothing to do with me. I didn't write that. I don't think I have that kind of an imagination that I can write something so beautiful. That was a magical thing that just happened while shooting.
Okay, so these chance factors anyway are part of filmmaking.
Yes.